This video took way too long to make, way longer than I would like to admit, but I think that was necessary. I think the time and the space that I gave it was necessary so it could reveal itself to me, and all I had to do was be patient. And while I was being patient, I discovered something about myself, something that I would like to share with you today.
How about we make this interesting? Whoever wins gets to read the other one's journal.
Oh, no, I don't think so.
What have you got to hide?
Plenty.
Now I really want to read it.
Game developers have normalized a once novel and innovative tool for keeping track of in-game events and relaying the main character's thoughts and feelings about what they're experiencing. From Nathan Drake, Artyom from the Metro series, or even Atreus from the God of War, they have in common their regular usage of journals. While they can serve as a mere design tool, a convenient way to convey information while remaining in the game world and maintaining a sense of immersion, when done expertly, they can bring us closer to the protagonists and help build the world and provide explanations to things that would otherwise be challenging to transmit via general gameplay. About a year ago, for some mysterious reason, I felt the strong urge to return to an old hobby of mine that I had essentially abandoned for years, if not decades. I was never exceptionally good at drawing, but I always did demonstrate some level of talent, although most of that talent went mostly unleveraged. Maybe all the turmoils of life had stirred something inside of me. Maybe the violent waves of anxiety and depression had finally thrown me overboard and forced me into my old refuge. Or maybe the orchestrated chaos of the world had finally cornered me into sitting down and finally drawing. So that's what I did. I started with a rough sketch of our living room, which is always radiant with natural light. I started sketching random sketches of my daughter, like when she's just playing around or brushing her teeth, so on and so forth. Soon, a small pile of sketches began to form, so I decided to buy a sketchbook to keep all my sketches in one place. I also started using my iPad more, which was why I wanted to buy one in the first place. But up until this point, I had never really used it to draw. Once I began putting pen, pencil, and charcoal to paper, it was like a small fire was set alight inside of me. I reconnected with a fragment of my younger self as I once again doodled, scribbled, and drafted between the pages. Chunks of time would pass without me noticing as I sat by the kitchen counter into the ungodly hours of the morning. For several days, I could not stop drawing. All I could think about was my next sketch and what I was going to teach myself in the vast world of drawing and sketching. It felt exhilarating to have something that was both calming and expressive. A couple of months went by and I had enough sketches to look back at my little collection and sort of reflect on my journey. And what I discovered was quite profound. This discovery prompted me to replay some of my old favorite games once again, but now with a renewed perspective on how the characters within those games used their journals to process difficult experiences and to document the world they see around them. Very few titles fully capture the desperation and hopelessness of a post-apocalyptic world like The Last of Us. There is a strangely attractive dreariness that lingers along this overgrown nightmare. The wailing echoes of the infected haunt the silence that hangs around the leaning skyscrapers and the lifeless hallways. Few things have survived the waves of death that washed across the world. Things like music, books, and art. All these things in general are mostly absent in this setting. A single moment of true refuge eludes the inhabitants of this hellscape. Finding a moment of true freedom is a treasure few in this world ever get to experience. Ellie, having lived her entire life as a string of traumatic events existing in a cold and brutal world, has never truly found peace. Having once been a naive and whimsical kid with a sharp temper,
You little shit.
No, fuck you! You handcuffed me!
I need you to shut
and having suffered so many heavy losses, she's now somber, aloof, and only finds a voice through her trusted journal. It opens a window into her inner world. In it, we get a glimpse of Ellie's artistic side, and we're also privy of her most intimate thoughts and emotions. In its worn pages, she documents her expression of her deep longing for Dina. She also writes what reads like her inner monologue as she wrestles with thoughts of self-doubt and her anxieties about potentially ruining a great friendship. After the kiss, Ellie doesn't seem to know what to do with herself, she writes. She seems intoxicated. This is a tender side of Ellie, a stark contrast to the Ellie we've come to know. In the first The Last of Us, we delved into her relationship with Joel and were all collectively traumatized by the horrific acts of violence people commit to survive. And even amidst all that adversity, we became familiar with Ellie's quirkiness and sharp sense of humor. We saw her as a little spark of hope in an otherwise forsaken world. But we never got any closer to her than that. That all changed in The Last of Us Part 2, where for the first time we are brought into Ellie's headspace and we get to know her just a little better as a person going through and processing a very human experience. Ellie is a sketch artist. That is an interesting fact considering the world that she exists in. Even in this hell of a world, an artist has found a way to create, line by line, a beautiful inner world. Her line work is impressive in many of her sketches, and one can tell her hand moved with confidence. She pens her plot against the Washington Liberation Front, mulling over obsessively her desperate plan to kill Abby and ultimately attain vengeance. Through her writing, Ellie processes Joel's death. Alone, she carries the boulder of grief. Even with Dina by her side, the void inside of her cannot be filled. Images of Joel cut into her mind. The past continues to hurt, and she writes that her skin knows it all too well. This pain is then distilled into regretful and remorseful poems and words she will never have a chance to say to him. Reflecting on the moth, she sees herself transformed beyond recognition. She always longed for her life to take on a greater meaning, always soaring towards the flame. But for every ember that glows deep inside, for every spark of life that dances during her darkest moments, a shadow is cast. And the shadows dance, analogous to Plato's allegory. Beautiful and horrific silhouettes of violence define the once humorous and hopeful Ellie we once knew. Now, I would like to turn the page to Arthur Morgan, who, although it seems arguably out of character, keeps a very good journal as well. In the serene wilderness of the Wild West, an outlaw drifts off in solitude and captures his most private thoughts and feelings. His first entry reveals that he lost a previous journal in a fire. Arthur further expresses how he misses writing and drawing much more than he thought he would. And there lies the bond, his sole safe haven, his cover from the storm, where he can let it all spill, bare and unashamed. Even early on in our hero's journey, his journal entries seem to foreshadow his own downfall, the thorn by his side that would infect the wound and usher in death itself. Visions of his past would still light up in his mind like that inferno in Blackwater, and although we already know his redemption arc, we cannot help but bleed our hearts for Arthur, whose fate is already sealed from the moment the brim of his hat revealed his young and old face that has seen all the ugliness of life and is yet to see the horror that truly lies in its shadows. Although on the surface Arthur seems insensitive to John and reveres him as his otherwise younger sibling, the pages of his journal spell out a jealous aspect of Arthur's layered character. In an alternate life, events would have transpired in his favor, and he would be the one by Abigail, and he would be the one taking Jack down to the river to fish, only this time as father and son. Arthur sits right in the middle of it all as he sees his own past, present, and future in the very company he keeps. The pages turn the reader to a different side of the outlaw's profile, a reflective and artistic mind with a keen eye for detail. His charcoal sketches are often quite striking. One can appreciate the various shading techniques employed to bring more life and depth to his subjects. His renditions of places like Blackwater demonstrate his understanding of perspective and his ability to capture vast spaces and landscapes. The way he portrays people and their stances and gestures is also masterful, with everything perfectly proportional. It is truly, absolutely amazing artwork. On the outside, Arthur projects a pessimistic worldview and seems to have very little trust in people and even less hope for the world altogether. This stance is rather juxtaposed rather sharply in some of his journal entries, where he confesses that he does see good in the world, and that even if he doesn't see it in himself, he can see it in Abigail's love for Jack. Another neat interactive touch that I love about Arthur's journal is that the more things the player does, the more they explore the game's vast open world. Almost all the things Arthur sees are captured in the journal. This carries on even when playing as John Marston in the game's epilogue, although John's sketches still need a bit of work. If we had never seen Arthur's journal and were only given the hardened exterior, we would have absolutely no idea how deeply reflective Arthur is and how incredibly talented he is.
Nonsense. Spouted by a fool.
I ain't changed. I'm still a bad man.
Maybe your path isn't changing, Arthur.
My path is coming to an end, Reverend.
I know, son. I know. And I know that you will face your destiny like a man, like a warrior. Because that's what you are.
That's all I am. A fighter, a killer, and a crazy man.
So be it. You lived your way, you'll die your way.
In this pivotal moment when the shell finally cracks, we have perhaps the only honest and vulnerable moment where his fear and pain are outwardly expressed to one another. Aside from that, it's all in the journal. The richness of his inner world, the skillful mastery of his charcoal sketches, and the beautiful and deeply endearing words that he'll never say to his one true love. Up until the making of this video, I had never fully read the diary of Anne Frank. I almost wish I hadn't finished it because up until now, I was under the mistaken impression that Anne Frank somehow miraculously survived, that she had perhaps later was tracked down and interviewed and reunited with her diary. What I did not know, and what I so painfully discovered in the final pages of the book, was that Anna was taken to a concentration camp where she later died. But even though the powers that be at the time did all they could to silence people like Anna, she was able to capture and document a moment in time during one of humanity's most tragic conflicts. Although Anna was confined to a small attic with her family, forbidden to even wander outside, play, and enjoy her youth, she managed to document her experiences. This revealed how impactful journaling can be, even in the most dire circumstances that people find themselves in. It can provide a very critical outlet, demonstrating that the mind is vast and limitless. Looking back on my own journey of journaling and keeping a daily sketching regimen, I feel immensely empowered by this gift that I didn't know I had. I look back at those early sketches and compare them to what I'm able to draw now, and I'm filled with such pride that I stuck with something long enough to reap the benefits. Drawing and journaling have given me an outlet to truly express myself creatively. It has also instilled a sense of pride in the fact that I am a creative person and that there is nothing wrong with that. So may this video, if it does anything for you, inspire you to jump back into an old hobby or find a new one, but ensure that it is one that lets you spread the wings of your imagination, one that you hunger for with an uncompromising intensity, one that makes life feel worth all the effort.